You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN, and now TSPN presents Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdoch.
Good morning and welcome to Love, Hope, and Faith. My name is Heather Murdoch. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm so blessed to be with you every Wednesday. I know I say this every week, but I really look forward to spending time with you and spending time with you in the Word and bringing you stories of how God transforms lives, how God is real, how He's alive, and how He's working in you and me as believers, and how He wants to have a relationship with us. That's the most important thing. That's His heart. His heart is to love us, to forgive us, and to have a relationship with us. And it's an amazing journey. And today I have such a fantastic guest. I am just so excited for you to meet my guest today, who I'll be introducing in just a few minutes. But today we're going to be talking about the power of your thoughts. And Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are right. Whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. And Proverbs 23:7 says, so a man thinks, so is he. And that is truth. And today we're going to be talking about that, unpacking it, how our thoughts can dramatically impact our lives, and how our thoughts can dramatically impact our walk with the Lord. And so you're definitely going to want to tune in. Bring your friends and family around this episode today. You're definitely going to be learning something today. And before I introduce Steve, I wanted to talk with you. I was thinking about the examples in the Bible of this truth, and there are so many biblical examples that we'll talk more about later. But one of the examples that came to my mind, if you go to your Bible in Numbers 13, talks about when the Israelites were finally going to be going into Canaan, which was the Promised Land. They were finally going to be entering into the Promised Land after years of wandering in the desert. Pardon me. And they sent in, they're right on the edge of the Promised Land, and they sent in a party or a team of people. There were 12 people they called spies to go spy out the land to see what the land was like before they entered it. And the team of 12 went into Canaan, and they saw that the land was flowing with milk and honey. They saw fruit bursting with ripe juice, this beautiful land that was rich in abundance. And the Promised Land, of course, is going to be that way. God promises to the Israelites. And the 12 came back. Well, while they were there in Canaan, they saw the giants there. And they came back and they said to, I'm actually going to have Tommy pull up the verse here, Numbers 13:33. There you go. So they came back and they did indeed talk about the blessed land, the land that was rich with abundance. But because they saw the giants, they were also afraid. And so what they said to Caleb and Joshua were, we seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. So we seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. So in other words, they saw themselves. So this is the land that God had promised to them, the promised land, the land that God had promised to them. And it was definitely as God had promised. Yet they came back, and because there were giants there, they were afraid, and they saw themselves as grasshoppers. And as a result of that, they were filled with fear. They saw themselves as small, as impossible, that the mission was impossible. And so they became filled with fear. And they actually, because of that, if you go and read Numbers 13, because of that fact, they did not go into the Promised Land, because they did not take the Promised Land as it was promised to them. They did not go in, and they actually wandered around for many more years. That generation did not make it into the Promised Land because of their refusal to obey and go to the land that had been promised to them. So we're going to talk more about that today, but it just is such an example of how we see ourselves and the thoughts that we have of ourselves, the thoughts that we have of God dramatically impact our walk with the Lord. And here today to help me understand that more clearly and to help you understand that more clearly is my new friend, Steve Campbell. Hi,
hello,
Steve.
Hello.
And you're a professor.
I'm a professor, retired.
Retired professor and author.
Yes.
Yeah, and I got so excited about our talk today that I kind of fumbled through that beginning, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
Our thoughts, their thoughts really prevented them from taking their destiny.
And the Bible has pointed this out 3,000 years ago, especially in the book of Proverbs, where, as you said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Cognitive psychologists discovered that about 60 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they say, and we now know this, that everything you do today is based on what you say to yourself about yourself today. Now, when this came out, psychology had a conniption fit. They said, no, 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 the way you are today is because of unresolved childhood conflicts. That was Freudianism. It's all in your genes. It's all in your environment. And Dr. Ellis, who developed this back in the 1960s, said they're all true.
Mm-hmm.
You say it, the brain believes it.
Yes.
And you lock onto it, and the brain actually rewires itself so that what you're saying becomes a part of who you are. That's what the Bible's always said. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah.
so powerful.
I know.
And it
It's
seems
so
so
simple.
simple.
It's so simple.
It seems so simple.
Yeah, yeah.
And today we're going to unpack some scriptures that prove this and
Yes.
talk about how we can actually accomplish that type of thought
Yes,
process.
yes.
Because it seems easy, but it must be a process to get to that point
It's
of
a
being able to believe
process.
that.
It's a process. But what's so exciting is that in the last 60 years or so, we have learned so much about the brain. It's astounding. In 1969, I think there were 400 members of the International Society for Neuroscientists. The latest membership now is 43,000. Because we have the technology to watch the brain work while it's working. So I've been studying this for 40 years, and then I share it with audiences. And the message that I like to give to them is that while I'm talking to you, you're talking to yourself thousands of times faster. The brain can do that because when I talk to you with words. And Heather, when you talk to yourself, you also use words, but you also use pictures and feelings. So when I think of Mary, my wife, I don't think of her with words. I think of how I feel about her and how pretty she is to me. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. So you're talking to yourself thousands of times faster than I'm talking to you. But here's the point. While you're talking to yourself, Heather, your brain's believing everything you tell it without question, no arguments. So when you say, I just cannot do this, the brain says, okay, you're right, you can't. And then it makes sure you can't. When you say, I can do this, you know what your brain says to that? Okay, you're right. And then it becomes obsessed with finding ways for you to do it. As you said just a few minutes ago, Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you cannot, you're usually right.
Yeah.
So everything that you are saying to yourself, your brain's believing without question. Now, here's something exciting, and this is where the Bible comes in. Is what you're saying true? Heather, did you know your brain doesn't even care? Your brain doesn't even ask that question. One of the best books I've read that is Phantoms in the Brain, written by Dr. V.S. Ramachandran down at UC San Diego. Phantoms refer to phantom limbs that have been amputated.
His what?
And they've been amputated.
His limbs, okay.
Yeah. A patient goes into a doctor's office, he'll say, I got to help me with my arm, I can't do a thing with it, it's itchy. And the doctor may have to say, well, because I amputated that arm 6 months ago. And the patient says, you didn't tell my brain that. My brain doesn't know it's gone.
Wow.
So why is that so exciting? Because we tell ourselves things and the brain believes it without question. So when we say, oh, I'm so stupid for doing that, you know what our brain says? Okay. But what happens is we lock onto that message and we say it over and over, and the brain rewires itself and it makes us stupid in that particular area. And that's amazing.
Is that why, like, you hear about athletes that are top performing athletes?
Yes.
Like Michael Jordan, for an example.
Yes,
He,
yes.
you know, of course, you know, he's born with all this great talent, but he still practiced
had to
every single
practice
day.
it, yes.
And I read an article from him that said he actually visualized
That's right.
in his mind's eye
That's right.
making those shots, those impossible shots,
That's
hundreds
right.
of times a day.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so is that an example of that?
When you watch a gymnast at the Olympics, just before they do their routine, they're closing their eyes. Some people think, oh, they must be praying, they're concentrating. You know what they're doing? They're visualizing every move they're making before they make it.
Wow.
And then what the brain does, and this is so exciting, is the brain replicates those movements so that they become true. Are those movements true? The brain doesn't even care. All the brain cares about is what you tell it.
So you said earlier in the beginning of the show that our brain, it's not about what we think, or it's not about our childhood experiences.
Yes.
It's about what we believe about the experiences.
Exactly.
So break that down
That's
a little
right.
bit more for
Okay.
us.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I said for the first 42 years of my life, I'm really stupid in math. And guess what?
You
I
were
was really stupid in math. I was really dumb in math. I discovered that I'm really good with computer software, so I got a graduate degree in computer software, began teaching graduate courses in computer software. And one day, when the dean came in the office, he said, one of our math teachers just quit, so you're a new math teacher. Wait a minute, I can't do math. Do you want a job? Learn. There's a book. You're doing math next semester. Well, I needed the job, so I ran down to the library, and this is a number of years ago, and I picked up all the books on brain-based learning. And I began teaching based on how the brain learns. And students began saying, you're such a good math teacher. And then the dean said, you know what, you're causing more problem, because all the students saying, I will only take math if Mr. Campbell teaches it. And so I began saying to myself, wait a minute. If I'm so smart with computers, I got to be smart with math.
Yeah.
And what did my brain say? Okay. Was it true? Don't care.
Yeah, the brain doesn't
All
care.
I care is what you tell me. You lock on to that message, and I'll make you smart in math.
Okay.
And that's exactly, and I ended up writing 2 college textbooks. And what do you think? Math.
Wow.
What happened? Did I suddenly become smart? I'm convinced I've always been smart. For the first 42 years, I said I wasn't. And the brain said, you're right. But then I began saying, no, wait a minute. The brain said, absolutely.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is.
That can change everything.
Oh yes,
Families,
absolutely. That's right.
Yourself, your business.
That's right.
Anything you do in life can
That's
be dramatically
right.
changed and
That's
impacted
right.
by that.
So listen.
But we want to talk about how we get to. How long does it take of telling yourself that? What's the process like?
It depends upon the message. There have been a lot of studies. Some people think it's a few days. Some think it's a few weeks. It depends upon the message and how complicated the message is to you. It took me about a month to realize I was really good at math.
Yeah.
For some people, there's other areas that we're struggling with sin in our lives that it takes years.
Yeah, to overcome.
But what we have to realize is that the truest thing
Before you say the
us-
truest thing,
Okay.
that's a great hook when we come back.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Stay tuned.